the entity that followed me after a night in the abandoned morgue. This is where the story begins. So my experience with the Ouija board happened back in 1999. I was in the British Army and had just returned from a 6-month tour in Kosovo. I sustained an injury while on tour, so when I got back I was sent to a military hospital for treatment. I was there for a while. Being sat around a hospital, things very quickly became extremely boring. So one night me and a few lads made a makeshift Ouija board. We didn't really know what we were doing. It was literally just to pass the time. Not long after that, I found out there was a disused morgue in the hospital. It was in part of the hospital that was not in use. So one night on my own, I went to the morgue. It was empty and pitch black. Even the corridors leading to it were unlit. I sat in the middle of the main room, lit a lighter, and began saying out loud, "Show yourself." I know this sounds odd, but this all came out of boredom. And I suppose I was trying to spook myself. Also, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I had never read any spell books or books on conjuring. I was just sat there with a cigarette lighter and saying out loud, "Show yourself." About a week later, I was placed on leave to travel home for a weekend. My home was about 200 miles from the hospital. One night, while at my mom's house, me and my mom had an argument. To disengage from the argument, I left the living room and passed through the kitchen to the back door. I opened the back door and seen a large blue luminous orb hovering there. It was about 80 feet in the air and was the size of a large SUV or transit van. I instantly thought I was seeing things. I called my stepfather. Bearing in mind he had just witnessed me and my mom arguing, I think he could tell the urgency in my voice and came and stood right next to me in the garden. I said to him, "Can you see that?" To which he replied yes. It seemed to drop about a meter and then accelerated off at incredible speed. This orb was so close I could have easily hit it with a stone. We then sighted a second orb. While observing this one, we had an episode of missing time. But it really felt like it was added time rather than missing time. This is because we watched the orb perform a maneuver, then at some point a few seconds later, realized we were re-watching what we had just watched. It was really odd. That same orb then accelerated vertically upward and disappeared into the field of stars. This took about half a second. I made a very rough calculation years ago to work out its speed. I assumed I could probably still observe one of these large blue orbs at the cruising altitude of a transatlantic plane, but possibly much higher. I can't remember the exact answer I got, but it was in the region 40,000 miles per hour vertically upward and in complete silence. We then witnessed a third orb. This final orb looked like it was going to pass us by, but then executed a 90-degree turn and come right towards us. It stopped directly above us, again at an altitude at which I could have possibly hit it with a stone. My stepdad told me he had seen enough and ran in the house. I watched for a little while longer. I noticed the air around me became charged, like static. That is when I became concerned and also bolted for the house. A few days later, I returned to the military hospital. Then a couple of days after this, while in the military hospital, I had a nighttime visitation from a being. I had just lay down in bed but was fully awake. As soon as my head went back and touched my pillow, an entity around 7 foot tall appeared next to my bed. I mean, it was really pushed up against my bed on my right side. It was draped from head to toe in a black hooded cloak. I could not see any skin or facial features. Although the entire encounter was odd, Two things really stuck out about this being. Firstly, its hood was sharply pointed up in a triangle-like shape. This seemed strange to me. Secondly, the being was leaning over me, but the way in which it was doing it seemed odd. If we were to lean over someone, we would do it with an arch in the back. The entity had a very straight back. It was leaning by tipping forwards with a straight back from its pelvic region. So its posture looked very unnatural and awkward. Its arms were straight down by its side. As soon as this being appears, I became unable to move. The only thing I could now move was my eyes. I remember scanning it up and down and seeing folds in its cloak. The paralysis I experienced was not sleep paralysis. I have suffered with sleep paralysis all my life. I never told anyone in the hospital about my encounters. The next night, I had just got a shower. As I left the shower heading for my room, I could see a friend I share my room with outside the room, in his boxer shorts talking to some nurses. He had his back to me, but when I got to them, I could see something wasn't right. I looked at him, and I've never seen someone look so frightened in all my life. He was gray. His eyes were wide and his pupils were huge. He was trembling uncontrollably and mumbling away. I asked the nurses what's going on. They said he had seen a tall, cloaked entity leaning over my bed. My empty bed, that is. For years after, I would have lots of things happen in the house, for example, electrical phenomena or orbs flying around the house. The energy company even told me I owed them thousands of pounds. This was impossible as I had a pay-as-you-go meter and was in credit. They sent someone out to check my meter and couldn't find the problem. They could not understand how this energy had been used, yet I was on a top-up meter that was in credit. I would often see UFOs, but they were never as low and close as that first encounter. I've since learned that this may be called the hitchhiker effect. I've not witnessed any worth taking about for years now.